So she's right here. Well, she's a beautiful chick, but I'll tell you for sure, boy. Now, show.
At 80 years old, Priscilla Presley is finally talking about letters. Letters from Elvis. Letters she's kept private for nearly half a century. Letters that, according to her, prove how much he loved her, how much he trusted her, how their bond was unbreakable even after divorce. And I'm calling it exactly what it is. A lie wrapped in nostalgia and delivered at the exact moment when almost no one is left alive to contradict her. My name is Donna Presley, and I need you to understand something crucial before we go any further. These letters Priscilla is suddenly revealing, they're not what she's telling you they are. They're not love letters. They're not romantic keepsakes proving some eternal connection. They're evidence. Evidence of what Elvis actually wanted. Evidence of who he actually trusted. Evidence of the instructions he left behind that were completely ignored the second he took his last breath. Priscilla has waited 47 years to talk about these letters publicly. 47 years. Why now? Why at 80? Why is she suddenly so eager to share these precious pieces of Elvis history after keeping them locked away for decades? I'll tell you exactly why. Because she's outlived almost everyone who could tell you what those letters actually say. Because she's calculated that at her age, with her carefully maintained image, people will accept her version as definitive truth without questioning it. Because she understands that this is her last chance to control the narrative before she's gone, and she's taking it. But here's what she didn't count on. There are people who saw other letters. Letters Elvis wrote in his final years that Priscilla doesn't mention in interviews. Letters to his father Vernon. Letters to family members. Letters to attorneys and financial advisors. Letters that paint a very different picture of what Elvis wanted and who he wanted in control after he was gone. I've spoken to people who read those letters. I've heard direct accounts of what Elvis wrote in the months and weeks before he died. And I'm telling you right now, Priscilla's name barely appeared. And when it did, it wasn't in the context she's selling to the world today. Elvis wasn't writing her love letters in 1977. They'd been divorced for 4 years. He'd moved on. She'd moved on. Their relationship was cordial for Lisa Marie's sake, but it wasn't this deep, soulful connection Priscilla keeps describing. Elvis was writing about the future, about Lisa Marie's protection, about his estate, about his legacy. And he was very, very specific about who he trusted to handle those things. Want to know something that's going to make you sick? Elvis left instructions, actual documented instructions about what should happen if something happened to him. He wasn't naive. He'd seen what happened to other entertainers when they died. He knew there would be fights over money, over control, over his name and image, so he tried to prevent it. He wrote down what he wanted. He told people verbally and put it in writing. He made his wishes known to his father, to his lawyers, to the people closest to him. He created a plan for how his estate should be managed, who should be involved, who should make decisions about his legacy. And every single one of those instructions was ignored. Within 48 hours of Elvis's death, everything he'd carefully planned was dismantled. The people he'd designated to protect his interests were pushed aside. The family members he'd trusted were shut out. The structure he'd built to safeguard his daughter and his legacy was torn apart and replaced with something else entirely. Something controlled by Priscilla. Now she's 80 years old, sitting in interviews, talking about letters from Elvis, like they're proof she was the love of his life and the rightful keeper of his flame. She's rewriting history in real time, and she's doing it at the exact moment when the people who could expose her are dead or too old to fight back effectively. My Uncle Vernon saw what Elvis wrote. He knew what his son wanted, and he spent the last 2 years of his life trying desperately to honor those wishes while being systematically blocked at every turn. It killed him. I genuinely believe watching Elvis's legacy be hijacked by someone who had no right to control it contributed to Vernon's death just 24 months after he buried his boy. Vernon told me things before he died. He told my mother things. He told other family members things. And one of those things was this: Elvis left a letter. A specific, detailed letter outlining his exact wishes, and that letter disappeared. Gone, vanished. Right around the same time, Priscilla positioned herself as the person in charge of everything Elvis. Convenient, isn't it? So when Priscilla talks now about letters from Elvis, I want you to ask yourself something. Why is she choosing which letters to talk about? Why is she framing them as romantic rather than instructional? Why is she presenting herself as the recipient of his deepest thoughts when people who were actually there remember him writing extensively to other people about other things? Because she's doing what she's always done. She's controlling the narrative. She's deciding which parts of Elvis's story get told and which parts get buried. She's positioning herself as the ultimate authority on what Elvis thought, wanted, and felt, despite not being present for massive portions of his life, especially his final years. These letters she's revealing now, they're strategic. Every word she shares is calculated. Every memory she presents is filtered through her specific agenda. And that agenda has always been the same: maintain control, protect her position, silence anyone who contradicts her version. But here's the problem with building an empire on hidden truth. Eventually, someone who knows what you're hiding decides they're done being quiet. Elvis wrote letters in his final years that told a completely different story than the one Priscilla has been selling for 47 years. Letters that revealed his real concerns, his real wishes, his real fears about what might happen after he was gone. And every single one of those fears came true. The people he wanted protecting his daughter were removed. The structure he wanted for his estate was ignored. The legacy he wanted preserved was transformed into something he wouldn't recognize. At 80 years old, Priscilla Presley is talking about letters from Elvis. But what she's not talking about is the letter that mattered most. The letter that would change everything if people knew it existed. The letter that disappeared 47 years ago and has never been seen since. That's the letter I'm going to tell you about. And once you hear what was in it, you'll understand exactly why Priscilla waited until now, until almost everyone who could confirm it is gone, to start talking about Elvis's letters at all. Let me tell you about the letters Elvis was actually writing in 1976 and 77. Not the carefully selected ones Priscilla wants to talk about now. The real ones. The ones people in this family actually saw, actually read, actually remember. Elvis was writing to his father constantly in those final years. Not little notes. Substantial letters. Letters about his concerns for the future. Letters about Lisa Marie and what kind of life he wanted her to have. Letters about the business, about the estate, about what would happen to Graceland if something happened to him. Vernon kept those letters. He treasured them. And the things Elvis wrote in them would absolutely destroy the narrative Priscilla has been building for 47 years. In one letter, and I know this because Vernon read it to my mother, Elvis wrote explicitly about his worries regarding control. He didn't name Priscilla directly, but it was clear who he was talking about. He wrote about people who mistake access for ownership and how important it would be after he was gone to keep those people from making decisions they had no right to make. Think about that for a second. Elvis was writing to his father about protecting his legacy from people who would try to claim authority they hadn't earned. And within 2 years, the exact person he was worried about had total control. But Vernon wasn't the only one receiving letters. Elvis wrote to his grandmother, Minnie Me. He wrote to close friends. He wrote to his attorney. And in multiple letters to multiple people, the same themes kept appearing. He wanted Lisa Marie raised with connection to his family, not isolated, not cut off. He wanted her to know her roots, to understand where she came from, to have relationships with the people who'd loved him before he was famous and would love her the same way. He wanted his estate managed by people who understood the business and had his financial interests at heart, not people whose primary concern was their own position or their own image. He wanted Graceland preserved, yes, but as a family home first. He talked about it being a place where Lisa Marie could always come, where family could always gather, where the next generation of Presleys would feel connected to their history. None of that happened, none of it. Lisa Marie grew up in California, systematically distanced from her father's family. The estate was managed by people whose primary qualification seemed to be their willingness to go along with Priscilla's version of things. Graceland was turned into a business operation where family became secondary to profit. Every single thing Elvis expressed wanting was ignored or inverted. Now here's where it gets even more damning. Elvis also wrote letters to his financial advisors and estate attorneys in the last year of his life. Letters that included specific instructions about succession planning, about who should have decision-making authority, about the structure he wanted in place. Multiple people saw these letters. Multiple people were copied on them. These weren't secret documents. They were part of Elvis's active planning for his family's future. And in those letters, Priscilla was mentioned exactly once. as Lisa Marie's mother with appropriate access and visitation, but not as executor, not as estate manager, not as the person who would control his legacy. Elvis knew what he was doing. He understood that his ex-wife had a role in his daughter's life, and he respected that. But he did not intend for her to have control over everything he'd built. He was clear about that. He put it in writing. The person he designated to manage things? Vernon, his father, the man who'd been with him from the beginning, the man who understood the business, the man who loved Elvis and Lisa Marie with absolutely no ulterior motive. Vernon was supposed to be in charge, and Vernon had specific instructions about who should advise him, who should be involved in major decisions, who should have access to what. It was thought out. It was detailed. It was legally sound. And 48 hours after Elvis died, all of it was irrelevant. I want you to understand something about those 48 hours. Vernon was non-functional. The man had just lost his son. He was drowning in grief so profound he could barely stand. He wasn't thinking about estate documents or succession plans or legal authority. He was trying to survive the worst moment of his life. And while he was incapacitated by that grief, Priscilla was making moves. Decisive moves, calculated moves. She didn't arrive at Graceland as a grieving ex-wife. She arrived as someone who understood that the next 2 days would determine the next 2 decades. And she was absolutely right. By the time Vernon was functional enough to think about Elvis's instructions, to look for those letters, to try to implement what his son had wanted, Priscilla had already established herself as the de facto authority. She'd already started speaking to the press. She'd already begun positioning herself as the keeper of Elvis's legacy. And when Vernon tried to push back, tried to say, wait, this isn't what Elvis wanted, he left instructions, we need to follow what he wrote, it was too late. The narrative was already set. Priscilla was already the grieving ex-wife bravely stepping up to preserve Elvis's memory. Vernon became the grieving father too emotional to think clearly. Do you see how that works? Elvis writes detailed letters about what he wants. He gives those instructions to his father. And then when his father tries to honor those instructions, he's painted as unreliable because of his grief. Meanwhile, Priscilla, who has the exact same reason to be grief-stricken, who's supposedly the love of Elvis's life, is somehow clear-headed enough to make major decisions. That's not suspicious to anyone. The letters Elvis wrote in his final years told a story, a clear story, about what mattered to him, about who he trusted, about what he wanted for his daughter and his legacy. Priscilla has spent 47 years making sure you never hear that story. She's buried it under her version. She's dismissed anyone who tried to tell it. She's made the actual evidence disappear while creating new evidence that supports her narrative. And now at 80, she's carefully revealing select letters. Letters she controls, letters she's framing, letters she's interpreting for you, while the letters that would expose her remain hidden or destroyed. Elvis knew, he knew what might happen. He wrote it down. He tried to prevent it. He left a paper trail of his actual wishes. And every single safeguard he put in place was dismantled by the one person he was trying to protect his family from. Those are the letters that matter. Those are the letters Priscilla will never talk about in interviews. Those are the letters that would destroy everything she's built. But they existed, people saw them, people remember them. And I'm going to tell you exactly what they said. There was one letter that mattered more than all the others combined. One letter that Elvis gave directly to Vernon just 3 weeks before he died. A letter so detailed, so specific, so legally precise that if it still existed today in its original form, everything Priscilla has built would collapse instantly. I know about this letter because Vernon talked about it constantly in the 2 years before he died. He described it. He quoted from it. He told multiple family members exactly what it said. And he searched for it desperately, obsessively, until the day he took his last breath. Because that letter disappeared, vanished completely. Right around the same time, Priscilla consolidated her control over everything Elvis. Let me tell you what was in it. Elvis wrote this letter in July of 1977. He was exhausted, he was struggling, and he knew, whether consciously or unconsciously, that he needed to get his affairs in order. He sat down and wrote out his exact wishes for what should happen if something happened to him. The letter was 8 pages long, handwritten, signed, and dated. Vernon showed it to his attorney. He showed it to my grandmother, Minnie Me. He showed it to my mother. Multiple witnesses saw this document and can testify to its existence. On page 1, Elvis laid out who should manage his estate. Vernon Presley, sole executor, final decision-making authority on all financial matters, all business decisions, all questions regarding the use of Elvis's name, image, and likeness. Page 2 specified the advisory board Vernon should consult. 3 people were named. Longtime financial advisors who'd been with Elvis for years. People who understood the business. People who had no personal agenda except protecting Elvis's assets for Lisa Marie's future. Priscilla's name did not appear on page 2. Page 3 was about Lisa Marie's upbringing and education. Elvis wanted her raised with strong connection to both sides of her family. He specified that she should spend significant time at Graceland, not just for visits, but as her actual home base. He wanted her to have relationships with her grandmother, with her aunts, with her cousins. He wanted her to understand her heritage and her family history. He wrote, and Vernon quoted this exact line to my mother, "Lisa Marie is a Presley first. That has to mean something." Page 4 addressed Graceland itself. Elvis wanted the house preserved and kept in the family. He wanted it to remain a home where family could live, where Lisa Marie could always return, where the next generation would feel connected to their roots. He specifically stated it should not become a museum or a tourist attraction. It was a family home and should remain one. We all know how that turned out. Pages 5 and 6 dealt with financial arrangements, specific trusts for Lisa Marie, provisions for family members who'd been loyal to him, instructions about how his royalties and ongoing income should be managed. It was detailed, it was thought through, and it protected everyone Elvis cared about. Page 7 is the one that would destroy Priscilla if it ever surfaced. On page 7, Elvis addressed his ex-wife directly. He acknowledged her role as Lisa Marie's mother. He ensured she would have appropriate access, appropriate visitation, appropriate involvement in their daughter's life. But then he wrote something that makes it crystal clear why this letter had to disappear. He wrote that Priscilla should have no decision-making authority over his estate, his business affairs, or his public legacy. He wrote that she had moved on with her life after their divorce, and he respected that. But it also meant she was no longer part of the Presley family structure in any official capacity. And then, according to Vernon, who read this section to at least 4 different people, Elvis wrote about his concerns. His specific concerns about control, about people who might try to use his death for their own benefit, about protecting Lisa Marie from being used as a bargaining chip. He didn't name Priscilla in that section, but everyone who read it understood exactly who he was talking about. Page 8 was his signature, the date, and a line that Vernon repeated over and over in those final 2 years of his life. "Dad, I trust you to make sure this happens the way I want it. Don't let anyone tell you different." That was Elvis's last written instruction to his father. "Do what I've asked. Don't let anyone override these wishes." And Vernon tried. God, he tried. The letter was in Vernon's possession on August 16, 1977, the day Elvis died. Vernon had it in his office at Graceland. He'd read it multiple times. He knew exactly what his son wanted. Then came those 48 hours. The chaos, the grief, the funeral arrangements, the media circus, the family falling apart. Vernon was barely conscious, moving through those hours like a ghost. And sometime during that 48-hour period, the letter disappeared. Vernon noticed it was missing about a week after the funeral. He went to his office to get the letter, to show it to the attorneys who were starting to discuss estate matters, and it was gone, not misplaced, gone. He tore that office apart looking for it. He searched every drawer, every file, every possible place it could have been moved to. He questioned family members. He questioned staff. He questioned everyone who'd been in that house during those 2 days. No one knew anything, or at least no one would admit to knowing anything. Vernon was certain, absolutely certain, that someone had taken it deliberately, and he had a pretty good idea who. But here's the devastating reality. Without that letter, Vernon had no proof of Elvis's specific wishes. There were witnesses who'd seen it, yes, but in a legal battle, eyewitness testimony about a missing document doesn't carry the same weight as the actual document itself. Priscilla's attorneys could argue that Vernon was misremembering in his grief, that the letter wasn't as detailed as he claimed, that even if it existed, maybe Elvis changed his mind afterward. that a handwritten letter shouldn't override the standard legal procedures for estate management. And that's exactly what they did argue. Vernon tried to fight. He hired attorneys. He prepared to wage a legal battle to honor what his son had explicitly requested. He gathered the witnesses who'd seen the letter. He documented everything he could remember about its contents. But he was fighting from a position of weakness. He didn't have the actual document. He was emotionally destroyed. He was dealing with his own health problems, and he was up against someone who'd positioned herself perfectly, who had the media on her side, who'd crafted an image of the devoted ex-wife stepping up in a crisis. Vernon died in June of 1979, 26 months after Elvis, and multiple people who were close to him in those final months said the same thing. Watching Elvis's wishes be ignored, watching that letter disappear and being powerless to prove what it said, watching Priscilla take control of everything his son had tried to prevent, it broke something in Vernon that never healed. That letter was Elvis's voice from beyond the grave. It was his final protection for his daughter and his family. It was his attempt to make sure the people he trusted would be the ones making decisions about his legacy. And Priscilla made sure that voice was silenced forever. Section 4. At 80, she finally reveals letters, but it's not confession, it's strategy. So here we are, 47 years later. Priscilla Presley at 80 years old, suddenly talking about letters from Elvis. Suddenly willing to discuss these precious pieces of history she's kept private for nearly half a century. Suddenly positioned as the generous guardian, finally sharing intimate glimpses into her relationship with the king. And I'm watching this unfold with absolute clarity about what's actually happening. This isn't confession. This isn't transparency. This isn't an old woman finally deciding to be honest before she dies. This is the final play in a game she's been winning for 47 years. This is strategic. This is calculated. This is Priscilla doing what she's always done, controlling the narrative one more time before it's too late. Let's talk about timing. Why now? Why is she bringing up these letters at 80 when she could have talked about them at 70, at 60, at 50? Why wait until 2024 to start revealing correspondence from 1977? Because she's outlived almost everyone who could contradict her. Vernon is gone. My grandmother Minnie-Me is gone. My Aunt Delta is gone. My mother is gone. The attorneys who saw Elvis's actual instructions are gone. The family members who witnessed what really happened in those 48 hours are gone. And most importantly, most devastatingly, Lisa Marie is gone. Lisa Marie can't push back anymore. She can't say, "Mom, that's not how Dad felt." She can't contradict Priscilla's version of events. She can't defend her father's memory against her mother's revisionism. Priscilla has waited until the witnesses are dead. That's not coincidence, that's strategy. And now she's carefully revealing select letters. Letters she's chosen, letters she controls, letters she gets to interpret and frame however she wants. She's showing you exactly what serves her narrative while keeping buried anything that would expose it. Notice how she talks about these letters. They're romantic, they're tender, they're proof of Elvis's enduring love for her. They're evidence that their bond transcended divorce, that she was special, that she understood him in ways no one else could. But she's not talking about the letters to Vernon. She's not talking about the instructions to attorneys. She's not talking about the detailed wishes Elvis left about his estate and his daughter. She's not mentioning the correspondence that would reveal he was actively trying to limit her control. She's cherry-picking, taking the sentences that support her image and burying everything that doesn't. And here's the truly brilliant part of this manipulation. By appearing to reveal letters now, she creates the illusion of openness. People think, well, if she's willing to share these intimate letters, she must be honest. She must be trustworthy. She must be the reliable narrator of Elvis's story. They don't realize that showing you 5% of the truth while hiding 95% is actually more deceptive than showing you nothing at all. Priscilla isn't giving you transparency. She's giving you a curated exhibition where she's both the subject and the curator. She decides which letters exist. She decides what they mean. She decides how they should be interpreted. And anyone who says, wait, I remember other letters that said something completely different, they're gone, dead, silenced by time and age and the very mortality Priscilla has strategically outlasted. There's something else happening here too. By talking about Elvis's letters now, Priscilla is preemptively controlling the conversation before anyone else can. She's making sure her version, with her selected letters, her chosen excerpts, her preferred interpretation, becomes the official record. If anyone comes forward later and says, actually, there were other letters that showed something different, Priscilla has already established herself as the authority. She's already claimed ownership of the Elvis letter narrative. Anyone contradicting her will look like they're making things up or misremembering. It's the same tactic she's used for 47 years. Get there first. Establish your version as canon. Make anyone who disagrees look unreliable by comparison. She did it after Elvis died. She did it throughout Lisa Marie's childhood. She did it after Vernon died. She did it when Lisa Marie started contradicting her. And she's doing it again now at 80 with just enough time left to cement this final piece of the narrative before she's gone. Because here's what Priscilla understands better than anyone. Legacy is written by whoever controls the story. And she's spent nearly 5 decades making absolutely certain that she controls Elvis's story. These letters she's revealing aren't proof of love. They're weapons. Weapons she's deploying at exactly the right moment to maximum effect with minimum risk of contradiction. But here's what she didn't count on. Here's the miscalculation in this otherwise flawless strategy. Me, I'm still here. I was there when Vernon was searching desperately for that 8-page letter. I was there when he described what Elvis actually wrote. I was there when family members who'd seen the real correspondence talked about how different it was from what Priscilla was claiming. I'm the last one standing from that generation who has nothing to lose and everything to fight for. I don't need Priscilla's approval. I don't need access to the estate. I don't need permission to tell the truth. And I remember what those letters actually said. I remember who Elvis actually trusted. I remember the instructions he left that were completely ignored. Priscilla can reveal her carefully selected letters all she wants. She can frame them however serves her narrative. She can use them as proof of whatever image she's trying to maintain. But I'm going to tell you about the letters she's not revealing, the ones that disappeared, the ones that would destroy this entire carefully constructed story. At 80 years old, Priscilla Presley is making her final play for control of Elvis's narrative. She thinks she's won. She thinks she's outlived all the opposition. She thinks she gets to write the ending of this story. But she's wrong. Because the truth doesn't die just because the witnesses do. The truth lives in the people who carry it forward. The truth survives in the memories of those who were actually there. The truth persists through the ones who refuse to let it be buried. Priscilla has had 47 years to control Elvis's story. She's weaponized letters, silenced family, outlasted opposition, and built an empire on a foundation of carefully managed deception. But her time as the sole narrator is over. The real letters, the ones she doesn't want you to know about, are about to be exposed. And once you understand what Elvis actually wrote, what he actually wanted, and how completely it was all ignored, you'll never look at Priscilla Presley the same way again. If you believe Elvis's real wishes deserve to be honored, subscribe right now. I have more truths to share about what was in those missing letters and who really controlled the narrative all these years. Share this if you think families deserve to tell their own story. Comment if you've always questioned Priscilla's version. The truth won't stay buried anymore.